Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome back to Deschiderea De Astăzi, or today's opening bell in English because today the guest of this edition is Ivan Kurtovic, CEO of InterCapital Asset Management, Croatia's largest independent investment manager. Ivan, good morning and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Good morning and thank you for your kind invitation.
To set up the discussion, I would like to talk with you first of all about the state of stock markets and the economic context. We see that the annual rate of inflation has started to slow down across most economies in Europe. But there are concerns about continuing price increases in some sectors. I don't know, services and food, for example. How do you see the situation and how suitable this period is for investments? And to what should the investor strategy be in this context?
Pavel, you sum it up quite well. So the inflation started basically decreasing, especially since last year it reached certain peaks. Still, majority of this inflation is coming mainly from the service sector because manufacturing is going slowly down. But what we saw across continents, so basically still in US, in Europe, this service sector is still fueling to a certain extent the inflation. What was good in all that respect is basically commodity prices, because commodity prices really, declined, I would say, even quite substantially. Somehow, I would say, even below certain levels that we saw prior to Ukrainian war. And somehow what we see at the moment is that commodity prices are pricing more like a recession coming. Same as what, for instance, fixed income market to a certain extent is pricing. And then, on the other hand, we see a stock market that is really picked up quite nicely this year, all mainly driven by earnings, because, the earnings, we all expected earnings to be much lower than it is. But then at the end, earnings started even gradually, picking up. Again, not at the level and rate what it used to be, but still started picking up. When it comes to investors at the moment, I would say that of course, the best and the brightest advice that you can give to any investors, first of all, is first of all, to know his risk appetite, because based on his risk appetite, he can fine tune, his portfolio. Globally diversified portfolio, I think, is something that always work best over certain, I would say, longer time framework. But then again, when it comes to certain tactical allocation, I think we need to be a bit more cautious when it comes to a bit riskier asset, because valuation wise, we might see certain correction.
About assets, what investments should we make? Should we buy bonds or equities or government bonds, or why not funds?
But yes, this is a good this is again a good point. I think at the moment with interest rates that rose really significantly over last year. Cash really represents at the moment quite decent, I would say, even investment opportunity, not for a long run, because, with cash you have your interest and this is it, same as with fixed income. But I think, a bit of overweight when it comes to fixed income instruments, fixed income funds, or just pure cash, either it can be in a money market fund form, or, just pure deposit, depends what rates this deposit brings. I think this is a suitable alternative. Still, again, what I want to highlight, and I'm big fan of growth, big fan of equity. I think that every investor needs to have exposure towards stock, because this is an asset class that at the end will bring the best and the brightest to your portfolio. But as I said, this tactical allocation might vary from time to time. But then again, whether we want to time the market or not as investor, maybe we don't want, and hence, this diversified portfolio makes a lot of sense.
In Romania, we have now a more typical market, because the largest energy producer in Romania, Hidroelectrica, is now listing on the Bucharest Stock Exchange. The IPO has been completed, and the listing follows up on 12th July. It's hard to see or to anticipate clear direction, but what is the sentiment of the investors of the Croatian stock market right now? How is trading on your exchange?
Well, Croatian stock market, I mean, it's overall positive. I mean, as all the exchanges, throughout the world this year. Maybe versus some of its peers, at least observing peers like in the South and Eastern European part or EU part of the South and Eastern European, like Romania, Greece, Slovenia, Hungary. I would say Croatian market is a bit below those numbers, but then again, Croatian stock market is very much linked to tourism. So we have decent portion of tourist companies, listed on the exchange, and a bit of food producing companies. On the other hand, we have like Slovenian market. We have, for instance, Greece market. Greece market did exceptionally well this year, and basically we are looking, and we are missing certain performance from Romanian market this year. But we believe that it was all due to this IPO and people, boosting their cash position mainly in order to participate this IPO. So I would say, of course, assuming we won't see like some major event on a global stock market, that there is a decent opportunity for Romanian stock market to perform in the second part of the year.
How do you see the Romanian stock market? I know because I know you have a product with Romanian shares, but we will shortly discuss that too. What can you say about the Romanian stock market?
Well, Romanian stock market, observing, so we've been invested in Romania for 10 years plus now, maybe even 12, 13 years. And we've been following, this market very closely for some time now. So in our view, it was continuously, undervalued, and basically we were all waiting, for something a bit bigger, to happen. So the market trades below on an index basis, below price earnings of 5. Of course, it has its reasoning because it is a bit more of like energy or commodity market. Then the dividend yields are really quite high, so it is a bit below or around 8% now. With this hydro coming, probably it will climb even a bit higher. So for any long-term value-oriented investor, I think this is a perfect market to have exposure. And as I said, we've been all waiting for some kicker to happen, and basically we believe that this hydro IPO could be that kicker, in particular because potentially after this listing. There could be like Romanian stock market could be awarded this emerging market status, and then we believe that a lot of investors that are still far away from being invested on the market might look at the market.
Okay, InterCapital AM has introduced over time various new products and services to the capital markets in the region, such as the launch of the first ETFs in Croatia based on the indices of the Zagreb Stock Exchange and the Ljubljana Stock Exchange, also listed in Slovenia. We discussed at the ZF Capital Market Summit this spring that you plan to launch an ETF with Romanian shares. You recently launched it and listed in Zagreb, and now I know that you have more plans regarding. But first, how big it is right now? How many investors, and how much are the assets worth?
So yeah, yes, that's correct. We launched an ETF 31st of May, so like a month and slightly plus ago. So far, we succeeded to attract roughly €6.5 million of asset. It's mainly Croatian asset because so far it was listed only on Zagreb Stock Exchange. We have a plans and we are now in process of listing it in Ljubljana, but this regulatory approvals, and regulatory pre-request needs to be done. So hopefully, we're gonna list it like within next, I would say, 2 weeks. And then, as a next step, we plan to list it in Bucharest, on the Bucharest Stock Exchange. But for that, certain additional pre-request needs to be done, including, single passporting of depozitarul central services to Croatia, because we have a Croatian ISIN. I mean, to cut the long story short, we plan to be there, as soon as possible. But of course, as soon as all the regulatory frameworks would be done. As I said, so far we were mostly focused on Croatian retail, some part of Croatian institutional as well. Though some of them took part in IPO directly, but still visiting and educating investors around, because we have a big event around the launch of our ETF. I think and I believe that really all of them understood how undervalued the market at the moment is.
I see. And what are its particularities, its specifications? Are we talking about shares in the betting index? It replicates index structure.
Yes, that's correct.
How has been received by investors? What is the appetite in Croatia for such instruments, especially with Romanian shares?
But I would say in general, Croatian investors really, for some time now, are lacking some attractive stories. And we observe, when we approach, when you explain the story, when we explain, some long-term potential of the markets, valuations, but also, historically what market did and how market were performing, everybody really wanted to understand more. And also, for instance, in over June now, so our ETF was, I think, second or third most traded share, like on the stock exchange. The first one was one IT company, a local one that also listed like 2 years ago. So basically that showed that if you have an attractive story, if you have a growth story, basically, investors would follow. Unlike, if you have capital markets and a structure of a capital market that is, relatively boring, I would say, just like 1% up, the 1% down, with some, I would say, light or low dividend yields, investors will look, for this capital growth somewhere else. And basically, since great financial crisis of 2008, 2009, the pattern was that majority of the retail investors really went abroad. So they started investing, on US market predominantly, some in Europe as well. So, as a capital markets throughout the region, we need to attract those investors back by basically offering them some nice and decent growth stories.
Okay, you said about Ljubljana and Ivan, because we are talking about passporting to countries in the region, what is missing or what is needed to be listed on the Bucharest Stock Exchange? You have plans in this regard too?
Well, it is. I think the most important part is this first listing, because for the first listing, you need to set the framework. Once you have all those pipes ready, it is quite, I would say, or relatively easy to list something new. So, for instance, now in the sense of listing on Ljubljana, We need to translate all the prospectus and the stuff like that, but it is not, how to say, it's not like a big deal. It can be easily done. But the most important part is to set the first ETF, because once all the pipes are ready, meaning, you know, regulatory approvals, also, you know, this settlement agency approvals, and all the framework for settlements to be done, then, you know, it is, I would say, relatively easy.
What are the plans for this ETF in the future? What comes after Ljubljana and Bucharest and in general?
Well, our mission was always, you know, to promote our region. We perceive somehow the whole this South and Eastern Europe, so including, you know, Romania, Slovenia, Greece as well, as a region that we operate. So this is the region that I would say is still quietly neglected by those bigger investors, and we found our niche basically in those countries. So our idea when it comes to ETFs is basically to launch various products on both equities and even, you know, fixed income throughout the region. Why? Because, as I said, you know, those big ETFs providers, they will hardly or never, you know, come to the region because for them it is too small. But for us, it is, you know, big enough. And also, you know, when it comes to end investors' perspective, it can also be quite nice complementary to a global ETF. So basically, you can make a decent portfolio out of both regional and global funds.
There is another ETF listed on the Bucharest Stock Exchange, ETF Bet Patria Trade Wheel is called, which replicates the structure of the benchmark. What would be the difference between the two?
Well, the main difference is that majority of our addressing will be towards international community in first place, because we want to attract this new money coming to the region. And also it will be a difference in a cost base. What we understood, you know, at the moment, at least from those publicly available data, so our ETF should be, you know, a bit attractive when it comes to pricing.
Okay, and what about an ETF with Croatian shares listed on the Bucharest Stock Exchange? Have you considered this?
We did. I mean, as soon as we got the regulatory approvals, very likely we'll go with Slovenian one at first, you know, to test the waters. Why Slovenian? Because, you know, the fundamentals of Slovenian market are quite similar to Romanian market. So quite high dividend yields and quite low valuation, though a bit higher versus Romanian market. And then at certain point, we do plan as well to list Croatian ETFs as well. Because I mean the beauty of those ETFs is that you can really easily list it across the region, and basically you can enable, you know, this flow of capital from one country to another country on quite easy manner.
What other funds do you have in your portfolio? Can you give us a brief overview?
Well, on ETFs, we have 3 so far. We plan to down the road. We plan to increase this portfolio of ETFs, but our core part and the core segment still is UCITS funds. So we are running roughly 12 funds in total, and we have the broad product lineup. So we have USD products from fixed income to equities. But also we have, and this is majority of our product lineup in euro, again from like money market and fixed income funds, balance funds that are more oriented towards retail investors, and then equity funds. One of our flagship fund when it comes to UCITS funds is South and Eastern European Equity Fund. That is basically, you know, the product that we are invested, as I said, for like 12-13 years now across the region. So main focus are basically those four EU countries of South and Eastern Europe. So Romania, Greece, Slovenia, Croatia, and we have some portion of Hungary and Austria as well.
400 million net assets under management.
Yes, in total, yeah.
In total, what investors have been moving towards in recent months? Where we see higher interest?
Well, majority of the interest so far we saw in a bit of conservative strategies, so money market, short-term funds, short-term bond funds, and fixed income, like classical bond and fixed income funds, mainly because the how to say, the returns in that range of the products are quite decent, especially I would say the outlook for those part of the products. A bit contrary to like a common, I would say, view, despite really decent rally on the equity side, and some of our products really delivering 30% plus return on the equity side, it applied to our global technology fund. We saw some inflows there, but investors are still relatively cautious when it comes to equities.
We mentioned earlier about Hidroelectrica. How do you see the listing of this company during these times? And I don't know, could the listing of Hidroelectrica defrost the pace of European listings, at least? Because we saw some failures in the IPOs market.
Well, I think this is really significant deal, like a deal that could really transform not just Romanian capital markets, but also the broader South and Eastern European, or even more like Central and Eastern European markets, and that could encourage some other stakeholders, it can be governments or big private companies, to consider listing as well. So as I said, for Romanian capital markets, I think this is really transformative deal when it comes to size of the overall company, so market cap, when it comes to offering size, but also when it comes to attractiveness towards retail, because what we saw and what we were reading so far, there are a number of new retail accounts that really opened throughout last month and a half, all basically in certain all showing certain interest for hydro. So I believe that this is the way to go if you want to make capital markets being attractive again. If you want to attract investors to come back to the market, this is the way to go. And I think it could be like a great example to some other countries how things could be done.
Will InterCapital take a position on Hidroelectrica? Do you intend to become shareholders through your funds?
Yes, we applied through those funds that are exposed towards region, that are exposed to Romania. So basically, we have two funds. One is, of course, this our new ETF, and the other one is this South and Eastern European fund that already have Romanian companies in the portfolio.
You participated in the IPO, I guess.
Yes.
What other Romanian shares do you have exposure to? What are you looking for?
Well, it is mainly those energy sectors. So basically, we are looking, always, for some companies that have quite nice, or I would say value valuation. We hold basically Petrom, we hold Romgaz, and of course, some of the banking names as well.
Okay. What can Romania do to develop the capital market further? What examples should we borrow from Croatia?
Well, this is a good point. I would say that quite not much can be borrowed in that respect from Croatia, because I think the overall the strategy that Romanian capital market, stock exchange, and the government took I would say 10 or 15 years ago, with Templeton coming and all the stuff done. I think Croatia and the region can borrow a bit more from Romania than Romania can borrow from the rest of the countries. But in essence, I think the most important part is basically to be continuously present on the international scene through road showing. So just to show the investors how attractive the market is, to attract continuously new investors, to cherish those existing investors, and basically to supply market with some new names. What was quite interesting, to observe in Romania over last, I would say 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So there are a decent number of even private companies that went public, and I think this is the way to go. So if you have a sound strategy, of course, I mean, execution can always lag, because there are a number of reasons how you can execute and why the execution can potentially be postponed or failed. But still, looking and observing like 10 years from 10 years in the past, I think the capital markets did quite decent job. And of course, fingers crossed that basically this listing will not be like a one-off event, but rather as a kicker for to attract some additional names to the exchange, but also a lot of new investors to the exchange.
All right, thank you. We are almost at the end of the discussion. What should investors look out for in the coming months? Why should they know?
Well, I think investors needs to be ready that markets will be volatile. Still things needs to, I mean, from the inflation point, from point of interest rates. Even interest rates peaking, so it is not a close call. So in months to come, in quarters to come, things should peak. I mean, interest rates should peak. Hopefully, the inflation should peak. But I think we need to be all very cautious, because, as I said, commodity complex is extremely down this year. Basically, it helped to reduce inflation, but it can also come up and pick up and return the inflation. And then, there would be, again, some worries that we saw and that we witnessed last year. When it comes to equities, I would say, as I said, interest rates and interest rates instruments like fixed income are pricing a bit more of recession and, reduction of interest rates, while, equity are really, I would say, pricing a perfection to a certain extent. And I think, with that, we need to be ready to see some volatility in months to come. But, volatility is normal for the market. Investors just need to be ready for that and prepare their portfolio as best as possible.
Thank you very much, Ivan, and I hope to hear from you soon with good news about the Romanian equity ETF. And not only, have a great day.
Thank you very much.
We end here the ZF Deschiderea De Astăzi. To those who listen to us, we wish a profitable trading session. See you soon.
Știu ce spun.
Regele Charles al III-lea s-a întors în România.
Turismul nostru se poate folosi de această oportunitate.
Asta este marea pagubă a României.
Știu ce te interesează.
În jur de 30 de drone au lovit subrubiile Moscovei.
Rusia așa a făcut-o cu mâna ei.
Și a trimis drona singură. Interesant.
Știu cum să te fac curios.
Și motiv de bătaie la concursurile Miss. I-a smuls corona și a dat cu ea de pământ.
De ce te uiți la mine?
Spuneau bărbații că femeile sunt rele.
Știu cum să te emoționezi.
Chiar dacă vii din ghetou, poți să fii cineva, spunea Tupac. Artistul va primi o stea pe Hollywood Walk of Fame. Sora lui va accepta onoarea în numele artistului.
Știu să conving.
Profesorii au refuzat creșterea salarială propusă de guvern.
Sunt mulți bani acolo la mijloc.
Ce să faci cu acei 600 de lei Nemo? Să le mărească salariile profesorilor.
Ne dezintegrăm în Europa. Fără educație o să ne pierdem tot.
Știu să câștig.
Totuși, fetele sunt primele.
Păstrăți.
Știu, deci știi.